Chapter 1. 30 million. I want Luo Qingtong's life. The world's #1 Arcana Assassin Union offered the highest price of the day. However, this 30 million did not attract anyone's attention. A cold voice replied, rejecting him. Not enough. 50 million. The other party seemed unwilling to give up until he achieved his goal and continued to increase the price. Not enough. Still no one turned back. That cold voice continued to refuse. 80 million. No, 100 million. 100 million US dollars. That should be enough, right? I must kill Luo Qingtong. A hysterical voice came from the other side. That cold voice paused for a moment. Just when the person behind the computer thought that he was going to agree, that cold voice said with a little disdain, "Sir, can I trouble you to check the price before you go on a mission next time?" Luo Qingtong's assassination mission has always been ranked at the top of the world's assassination list. The starting price is 1 billion US dollars. 100 million? They wanted to take Luo Qingtong's life? What kind of joke was this? In the last assassination attempt, the Arcana Guild had sent 3 of the world's top Arcana experts, including the vice president, to kill Luo Qingtong. The names of these 3 people were enough to cause a huge sensation in the world's Arcana world. Even the heads of state had to treat them with caution and use the power of the country to guard against them. However, when it came to Luo Qingtong, they easily lost all information. Until now, they still did not know whether those 3 people were alive or dead. From then on, Luo Qingtong's price rose to the top of the world's Arcana Union's assassination list. Moreover, until now no one had surpassed it. No one dared to take on this order. The reason why a high price of 1 billion was because a price of 1 billion was enough to make a country go crazy. If a country was in a crisis and urgently needed such a large sum of money, perhaps they could activate the national missile system to directly lock onto Luo Qingtong's position and launch a bombing. Perhaps, there was a certain possibility that they could kill that terrifying woman. In other words, the starting price of 1 billion was not the price of an assassination, but the full force of a country. But even the full force of a country may not be able to do anything to Luo Qingtong, that peerless monster. After all, she was the only supreme ocular sorcerer in the world. A pair of demonic blood-red eyes, seemingly able to see through everything in the world. If she said that she could see through the trajectory of the missile and avoid it in advance, he would believe her. He wanted to take her life with just 100 million USD? If it weren't for the fact that the customer was paramount, he would have spat out a hee-hee in the other party's face. But speaking of which, 100 million US dollars was already a sky-high price if it wasn't for Luo Qingtong. Most small countries would not be able to fork out so much money even if they used all their resources. He didn't know what Luo Qingtong had done to make the other party so crazy. While the members of the Assassins' Union were astonished, on a private beach in the Caribbean Bay, Luo Qingtong was lying on the ground, looking at the bead in her hand under the sunlight. That bead was round and smooth like jade, looking like a crystal. The color and light stirred inside was as dazzling as the starry sky. This is the thing that Country M's Area 51 treats as their lifeblood? There's nothing special about it. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows as she looked at the bead in her hand. She really didn't know why Country M treated it as their lifeblood. Area 51 had 3 layers of defense. With her ability, she was almost exposed when she sneaked in. One must know that under her pair of blood-red eyes, the defense of Area 51 was almost non-existent. In this case, she was almost caught. Was this bead so important? Luo Qingtong looked left and right, but she couldn't see what was so special about this bead. The girl was lying on the white beach, facing the sunlight. The rays of the sun shone on the bead in her hand and refracted a 7-colored brilliance, setting off her perfectly proportioned figure, making her look like a soul-stirring muse in ancient Greek mythology. What was even more amazing was Luo Qingtong's beautiful Eastern face. She looked like a jade doll, revealing the mysterious and reserved beauty unique to the East. But when a trace of sharpness appeared in her eyes, the smile on her lips curled up wickedly, instantly turning her into the dark goddess described in the Western hell. Bewitching people's hearts, wild and evil, like a blooming flower of hell. Tisk, it's useless. Unable to see any clues, Luo Qingtong felt quite bored. With a casual flick of her finger, she flicked the bead to the side. As the #1 person in the 24th century's ability world, the supreme eye technique master, and an existence feared by the entire ability world and even all the countries in the world, Luo Qingtong had seen countless treasures. Such a thing that Country M valued so much, in her eyes, was just a relatively beautiful gadget. However, no one expected that when Luo Qingtong raised her hand and flicked away the bead that made Area 51 put a sky-high bounty on her, a few lines of ancient seal characters suddenly appeared on it. The next second, with a boom, a sudden clap of thunder, Luo Qingtong's figure was instantly sucked in. Ah! The people on the beach thought it was a terrorist attack and fled in fright. Chapter 2. True Spill Continent at the extreme western edge. Eastern Fence Nation 9 Witch Mountain. Ah! Who are you people? A young girl in a pink dress, who was dressed luxuriously and had an exquisite face, was knocked to the ground. Her dantian had been hit by a palm, and the energy in her body was quickly draining away. In an instant she had fallen from a peak phase 9 martial artist to an ordinary person. The girl lay on the ground powerlessly. She looked at the group of men in black that had suddenly appeared around her. She did not know where they had come from. The place where she had broken through was extremely secretive. Besides a few people, no one else knew about it. The entire 9 Witch Mountain was so big. Why did these people target her? Moreover, the moment he made his move, he was so vicious and ruthless, directly crippling her cultivation. Soon she had an answer. Ah, big sister, how does it feel to be trash? With light steps, a young girl wearing a light blue dress with flowing clouds slowly walked out from behind the group of black-clothed men. Her hands were behind her back, and there was a pleasant tinkling sound of pendants. Every step she took was like stepping on Luo Qingtong's heart. Her entire body trembled uncontrollably. Luo Xining? It's you? It's you? The girl did not expect that the person who had harmed her was the little sister that she had taken care of. Luo Xining, the third daughter of the Luo family's second concubine of the marquis residents of the Eastern Fence Nation. She had been weak and sickly since young and was not valued. It was the girl who had brought her along and used her own resources to nourish her body. Finally, she was able to practice martial arts and develop her talent. She became the third generation of the Luo family, second only to her. Everyone had a reason to betray her. Only Luo Xining could not. Because everything she had was given to her by her. Why? Why are you doing this to me? The girl did not want to believe all of this. How had she done anything wrong to Luo Xining? How could she do this to her? Taking advantage of her breakthrough, she brought people to attack her and destroy her cultivation. You can only blame yourself for being too lucky. You're an eyesore. Luo Xining looked at the beautiful girl who was lying on the ground and could not get up no matter how hard she tried. She felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Luo Qingtong, the first daughter of the Luo family. Luo Qingtong had always been on top of her. In terms of strength, Luo Qingtong was the first in the third generation of the Luo family. In terms of beauty, Luo Qingtong was the #1 beauty in Dongli country. She had a beautiful face, snow-white skin, and a jade-like complexion. She didn't need to take care of herself every day. Wherever she stood, she would be the center of attention. Especially that pair of jade-green eyes, they were like two crescents of clear spring water, flowing with light and overflowing with color, sparkling and translucent, causing her already extremely beautiful appearance to be set off to become extremely outstanding. It was said that the eldest daughter of the Luo clan had a celestial appearance and was absolutely beautiful. She was like a heavenly goddess who could be seen from afar but could not be approached. That was indeed the case. Even Luo Xining, who claimed to be a beauty, felt that as long as she stood beside Luo Qingtong, she would immediately turn from a beautiful peony into a wildflower by the roadside. The so-called national beauty was nothing more than this. Looking at Luo Qingtong, who was lying on the ground but still looked elegant and beautiful, Luo Xining felt an indescribable jealousy in her heart. She stepped forward, raised her hand and pinched Luo Qingtong's chin and lifted her face. Chapter 3. Before Luo Qingtong could react, she felt Luo Xining raise her hand. With a swoosh, something flew into her eyes. Ah! Luo Qingtong screamed. When that thing entered her eyes, it was as if her eyes were being burned by a soldering iron. She blacked out and rolled on the ground. Her snow-white skin was covered in mud and grass. Luo Qingtong's hair was messy. Between her fingers, which were covering her eyes, black blood flowed out as she screamed in pain. I've destroyed your cultivation, but that's not enough. I'll destroy your eyes too. Luo Xining looked down at Luo Qingtong, who was screaming and rolling on the ground. Her voice was clear, but there was a chilling viciousness in it. Sister, don't blame me. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. There are too many benefits for me to deal with you. I can't refuse. You can only blame yourself for being too lucky. You've offended someone you shouldn't have. Luo Xining then said to the men in black, I'll leave her to you guys. You can do whatever you want. But after tomorrow, I want to see Luo Qingtong, with her chastity and dignity shattered, at the gates of Wingay City. Do you understand? Yes. The men in black answered loudly. Many of them looked at Luo Qingtong with lewd smiles. She was the #1 beauty of Dongli country. Now they were going to take advantage of her. The men in black couldn't wait any longer. Luo Xining didn't look at Luo Qingtong again. She turned and left. She was very relaxed. From now on she was the #1 genius of the Luo family. All of Luo Qingtong's glory would be hers. And Luo Qingtong herself would become a disgrace to the Luo family, an unchaste cripple. In this way she would have completed the task given to her by that person. Ah, brothers, let's have some fun. Seeing that Luo Xining had left, a group of men in black surrounded her. At this moment, Luo Qingtong had lost all her cultivation. She didn't even have the strength to truss up a chicken. She was no match for them. She could only watch in despair as they got closer and closer. Luo Xining, I will not let you go. I will never let you off. Even if I become a ghost, I will haunt you forever and never let you die a good death. Seeing the men in black approaching her, Luo Qingtong felt despair. She gritted her teeth and was about to commit suicide by biting her tongue. However, one of the men in black noticed her movements. Seeing that she actually dared to seek death in front of them, the black-clothed man was infuriated. He took a step forward, grabbed her chin and fiercely slapped her. Bitch! We brothers haven't had our fun yet. You actually dare to seek death? The black-clothed man was so angry that he forgot that Luo Qingtong had lost all her cultivation and was now an ordinary person. The celestial qi in his palm was used to slap Luo Qingtong and send her flying. *CK. You idiot. What if you kill her? Seeing Luo Qingtong fly out and crash heavily into an ancient tree that was as thick as 10 people, the other black-robed men were all shocked. They cursed the black-clothed man fiercely and hurriedly ran over. However, no one knew that just as they ran over, Luo Qingtong, who had fainted under the ancient tree, suddenly opened her eyes. Whoosh! She knew the condition of the person's body and where the illness was. Such a heaven-defying ability brought Luo Qingtong unlimited benefits and convenience, but it also made her bear all kinds of troubles. All the countries in the world, special ability and ancient martial arts, all of them wanted her ability and wanted her to serve them. And if Luo Qingtong didn't have any ability to protect herself, she would have been encircled as an exclusive property and become a walking corpse and chess piece under the control of others. How could she have made such a great name for herself in the special ability world, making the entire special ability world and all the countries in the world afraid of her? Her eyes being blinded by poison wasn't a big deal to her. Chapter 5. Swoosh. Bloody light gathered in Luo Qingtong's eyes. Specks of blood-red light rose from it, drawing a dark red 3D scene in front of her eyes. The movements of the black-robed man in front of her were revealed to her by her eye technique. This was one of the most basic functions of Luo Qingtong's pupil technique, vision. The large net that was spread out with mental power captured the movements of everyone within the range. It was 100 times more powerful than infrared imaging. With this ability, Luo Qingtong could annihilate all enemies at night, even if she was blind. Once, she broke into the White House of the M Nation at night. Under the bombardment of thousands of flares, she could still move freely, killing hundreds of people and calmly escaping. Since then she had shaken the entire ability world and became famous overnight. Bang! Raising her hand to push away the corpse in front of her, Luo Qingtong's blood-stained little face bloomed with a wicked and enchanting smile. Like a bloodthirsty demon flower, she smiled and looked at the group of men in black rushing over. You want to die? I'll fulfill your wish. Her jade-like face was emitting a dazzling brilliance at this moment. The girl's eyes were blurred with black blood, and her gaze was empty. At this moment, her whole body was exuding a fierce and bloodthirsty aura. The tip of her pink tongue gently poked out and licked the wound on the corner of her lips. Feeling the pain, the smile on Luo Qingtong's lips deepened. You. They found that Luo Qingtong was completely different from before. Looking at Luo Qingtong, who was as beautiful as a demon sucking people's souls, the group of men in black felt not full of amazement and infatuation, but a bone-chilling coldness. Why did this Luo Qingtong suddenly give off such a terrifying feeling in just a short while? The group of men in black was bewildered. But soon they dispelled the bewilderment in their hearts and calmed down. Luo Qingtong, don't be deliberately mystifying. You couldn't beat us when you were still a cultivator. What can you do now that you're a cripple? You're too naive if you want to use this to scare us away. The group of men in black thought that Luo Qingtong, as the eldest daughter of the Luo family, must have some life-saving items and means on her. Although they didn't know why she didn't come out before, Perhaps she was worried about Luo Xining's presence? After all, the others' cultivation was much higher than theirs. But no matter whether Luo Qingtong was deliberately mystifying or not, they would not let her go today. Brothers, go! The group of men in black rushed towards Luo Qingtong with weapons. In their opinion, Luo Qingtong was a cripple. Even if she had some life-saving means, how many times could she use them? She was also a blind cripple. If they went together, they would capture of Luo Xining. However, they didn't expect they had guessed the beginnings, Qingtong. When they saw that Luo Qingtong had escaped from their attacks, their eyes flashed with astonishment. They were originally secretly supervising those people to deal with Luo Qingtong. They wanted to make sure that nothing went wrong. They didn't expect her to suddenly change her personality and kill the group of black-robed men. Now she had escaped from their hands. With their strength, how could they let a blind person with no cultivation escape from a place like Dongli country? Was it luck or... And the poison in her eyes was personally given to Luo Xining before they came. It was the medicine sent by that person from that place. There was absolutely no mistake. What exactly happened to this Luo Qingtong? How did she become so terrifying? As the silver-clothed people thought, they became even more determined to catch Luo Qingtong and kill her. Her transformation was so shocking now. She must have some kind of secret on her. They must catch her and interrogate her about the secret. At the same time, they must not let her leave this place alive. Otherwise, if she knew what they had done in the future, there would be no end of trouble. And just as the silver-clothed people were about to kill Luo Qingtong had already appeared in front of the flash of light in her eyes. Ah, hooray. Luo Qingtong laughed happily. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. With this array, she was not afraid of the silver-clothed people's pursuit. Chapter 8. However, this formation was well hidden. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong's vision, she probably wouldn't have been able to discover the location of this formation in this forest. When she got closer, Luo Qingtong was even more astonished. Because this formation was hundreds of times more difficult and obscure than the formations in the ancient books she had read in the 24th century. It was definitely not an easy task to crack it. Fortunately, she had her vision. As Luo Qingtong thought so, the bloody light in her eyes flashed. In an instant, she saw through the path of energy circulation in this formation. Her figure flashed and she rushed in. But Luo Qingtong never imagined that she would see such an erotic and hot scene when she rushed in. She stared unblinkingly at the scene in front of her. She saw a naked man's body appear in her line of sight under a waist-deep jade spring. In the dark red vision, the man was soaking in the jade spring. His bronze-colored body had muscles that were slightly knotted and bulging. The lines of his flesh were firm and smooth. He was as beautiful as a work of art created by the heavens. The man's face was hidden in a cloud of mist, faintly discernible. Even though Luo Qingtong's vision had been activated to the extreme at this moment, she still couldn't see through the faint light surrounding his face, let alone see his face clearly. This was the first time Luo Qingtong's vision had failed since she had mastered it. She actually couldn't see his face clearly. But even so, it didn't diminish the other party's charm at all. The man exuded an astonishing aura. Even in such a bare scene, it still gave people an extremely noble and elegant feeling. The aura surrounding his body was like that of a king descending to the world. He was lying on the edge of the pool, his body leaning back slightly, and his hands resting on the edge of the spring. Because of this action, the lines of his back unfolded with great tension. The butterfly bones on his back were clearly visible. His head was slightly raised, and the corner of his smooth chin could be vaguely seen through the faint mist. Just the beautiful lines that were revealed were enough to prove that this man was absolutely a high-quality handsome man. And a handsome man with an excellent figure. Luo Qingtong looked at the other party's exposed body. The jade-colored spring water was not very deep. It only reached the man's crotch. As the spring water rippled, the lower half of the man's body was faintly discernible. Oh my God! He was simply bewitching. Luo Qingtong felt that she was about to have a nosebleed just by looking at it. She was used to seeing handsome men and beautiful women in the 24th century. But no matter which type of handsome man he was, whether it was a young fresh meat or an old cured meat, there was no way he could be compared to this man who didn't even show his face. Chapter 9. Swish. The handsome man who had just closed his eyes, opened them again. Luo Qingtong saw that he was looking in her direction with cold eyes, and his thin lips moved slightly. Luo Qingtong knew that things were not going well when she saw this. The other party was obviously disturbed and was preparing to drive her away. Luo Qingtong did not have time to check on her injuries, let alone recover some of her strength. After running through the forest for such a long time, her physical strength was almost exhausted. If she was discovered, there was no way she could escape. Thinking of this, her eyes suddenly flashed. Almost at the same time that the other party's lips moved, she dodged and rushed directly into the spring. At this moment, she pulled out the jade hairpin in her hair and held it in her hand, aiming it at the vital part 3 inches below the man's abdomen. At the same time, her soft little hand covered the other party's lips that were about to open. "Handsome man, I'm in an emergency. Let me borrow your place to take refuge. I don't think you'll refuse the request of a weak woman like me, right?" Luo Qingtong's body was tightly pressed against the man's body because of the force from before when she had rushed into the spring. Her lips were pressed against the man's ear, her breath was like orchids, and her words were delicate and pitiful. If one did not see her other hand's ferocious actions hidden under the spring, they would have mistaken her for very delicate and helpless. Xianxia's gaze was cold and angry as he looked at the woman who had intruded into his healing spring. The other party's face was covered in blood and dirt, and she was so sloppy that it was impossible to see her original appearance. However, that pair of slightly raised lips and the wanton and evil smile on it gave her a kind of dazzling charm. No one had ever dared to treat him like this. Xianxia's heart was filled with extreme anger when he felt the piercing pain from the sharp point of the other party's lower abdomen. "You're not blind." He looked coldly at the other party's eyes, which were still empty and lifeless, and his thin lips were tightly pursed. He had actually misjudged. "Haha, who said that I'm blind?" Luo Qingtong closed her eyes and pretended to be stupid. She did not want this man to find out that she had seen him naked. She was already very unlucky to have offended this man. Luo Qingtong's intuition told her that this man was very dangerous. He was countless times more dangerous than those silver-robed men outside. If the other party found out that she had not only threatened him, but also seen his naked body, the consequences. Ha ha ha. Xianxian did not believe her words. The other party's quick, accurate and ruthless movements just now was definitely not a blind person's movements. Luo Qingtong knew that she couldn't hide it from him anymore, so she decided to go all out. "I say, handsome, why are you staring at me like that? What's going on? Could it be that you've taken a fancy to me?" She leaned close to him, almost pressing her entire body against his. Her breath smelled like orchids. But the hand holding the jade hairpin was even closer to the other party's thing lying in the grass. "You have to know, when a handsome man like you stares at me like this, it makes my little heart beat wildly. If I'm not careful and can't control myself, maybe?" Her tone was ambiguous as she said this, and the sharp point in her hand gently slid over a certain person's vital part. The ice-cold touch was constantly telling the other party, "Your little brother is in my hands, ah." Chapter 10. Hearing her words, the anger in Xianxian's heart almost broke through the sky. At this moment, Luo Qingtong suddenly felt some changes in her body. She was so shocked that her hand slipped. In an instant, her tender fingers that were holding the jade hairpin touched something lying in the grass below the man's lower body. Being touched by this soft and tender touch, almost instinctively, the man's body suddenly tensed up. "You." Xianxian's body stiffened. His gaze was incomparably angry and cold as he looked at this lustful woman. She actually dared. Cough cough. "I'm sorry. My hand slipped. Absolutely my hand slipped." Luo Qingtong looked at the man's angry eyes and coughed lightly. However, all of her explanations looked like she was trying to cover up. "Hand slipped? Ah." Even Luo Qingtong herself didn't believe this reason. But she really didn't have the intention to take advantage of this man. Although she often teased young fresh meat and old cured meat in the 24th century when she had nothing to do, verbally taking advantage of men, she really wasn't that unprincipled. While threatening others, her hands were up and down. She really wasn't such a wretched person. Luo Qingtong didn't even have the confidence to explain herself. But heavens knew that her hand really slipped. Because Luo Qingtong suddenly realized that the injuries in her body seemed to have healed in an instant. Even the dantian in her lower abdomen that had been in severe pain before had regenerated strength. In fact, when Luo Qingtong had just woken up, she had discovered that her body's strength had been crippled by someone. It was precisely because of this that the strength of this body had weakened so much. For a martial arts practitioner, a crippled dantian was almost equivalent to being completely crippled. Unless they could find some immortal spirit herb that could defy the heavens and change their fate, they would be a cripple for the rest of their lives. But Luo Qingtong was different. Her eye technique could allow her to repair the damage to her dantian. She just needed to give her some time. However, she did not expect that just now, a warm current would suddenly flow through her body and heal her internal injuries. At the same time, it also repaired her dantian. It was also because of this that Luo Qingtong's hand trembled in shock and accidentally touched the other party's little brother. She really couldn't be blamed for this. However, this warm current seemed to be brought by the spring water. Could it be that this man was recuperating in the spring water, which was why he was able to activate the array formation outside and was unable to resist her actions? Luo Qingtong felt a little strange. She had gotten it too easily. This man wasn't simple at all. Why didn't he resist at all? So it was because he was recuperating. Yi Qianxian looked at her coldly. That pair of sharp sword-like eyes, which seemed to carry a bloody aura, stared closely at her, as if he wanted to carve her entire person into the depths of his heart. Just as Luo Qingtong was getting goosebumps from his stare, he suddenly closed his eyes again. Gulyalu, under Luo Qingtong's gaze, the green spring water around the two of them suddenly boiled fiercely. The green color inside quickly disappeared, as if something was rapidly absorbing the medicinal properties within, causing the spring water to quickly become transparent. Luo Qingtong looked at the changes in the spring water in amazement. Soon she also felt the warm current surging in her body. The other party was indeed recuperating. But why didn't she see any scars on his body? Luo Qingtong was astonished. Her gaze wandered up and down the other party's body. Chapter 11. Cough cough cough. Someone's capital was really strong. Luo Qingtong tried her best to look away from the other party. However, the other party's strong capital kept ringing in her mind. Damn it. Her illustrious reputation. One must know that although Luo Qingtong usually liked to talk nonsense and looked evil and strong, in fact, it was the first time she saw a man's thing. This feeling was simply indescribable. She was clearly taken advantage of, but she didn't even have a place to reason. She also felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. Simply. But even so, her hand holding the jade hairpin firmly pressed against the other party's lower body didn't loosen at all. No matter who took advantage of who, she couldn't let go. The power in the spring was quickly being absorbed. Luo Qingtong's strength was also quickly recovering. Feeling the abundant power in her body, Luo Qingtong smiled and narrowed her eyes. But soon she restrained her smile. Because she felt that the dangerous aura that the man gave her was even stronger. Her injuries were all healed, so this man should be almost healed as well. Luo Qingtong estimated that the people outside should be far away and immediately prepared to leave. After all, she forced this man who didn't look simple to the spring and threatened him. She also took liberties with his little brother. Fine. She made a mistake. But the other party didn't believe it. That's right, she also stole his healing spring water. Luo Qingtong calculated in her heart. She felt that if she were in his shoes, the first thing she would do after recovering was to teach the other party how to be a proper person. She'd better hurry and leave. Thinking of this, she put away the jade hairpin in her hand and elegantly inserted it back into her hair bun. Then her whole body swept out of the spring water. Bye-bye, handsome, we won't meet again. We won't meet again. This compensation is for you to get over your shock. Also, I really made a mistake just now. I didn't mean to take liberties with you. Her words caused Yi Qianxian, who had his eyes closed in the spring and was taking the time to heal his injuries, to open his eyes. He glared at her coldly and angrily. Haha. Luo Qingtong laughed dryly and waved at him. She muttered to herself, why are you being so serious? Although I've seen your naked body, I'm still at a disadvantage. That thing was so ugly, who would want to look at it? Although he was handsome, that didn't include that thing. These words successfully caused Yi Qianxian's expression to change. Good. Very good. Luo Qingtong thought that no one could hear her ridicule, but little did she know that Yi Qianxian had heard it all. This woman actually felt that she was at a disadvantage after seeing him naked. Yi Qianxian looked angrily in the direction that Luo Qingtong left. The anger in his eyes soared, even hotter than the blazing clouds in the sky. Especially when he saw the so-called compensation that Luo Qingtong threw out, his eyes became even more furious. That was something that Luo Qingtong had found from the black-clothed men. Although it was considered pretty good in Dongli country. But to Yi Qianxian it was even worse than the trash on the streets. This was the compensation that woman gave him to get over his shock? Yi Qianxian was so angry that he laughed. He had never been treated like this by a woman before. No woman dared to get close to him, and he didn't allow any woman to get close to him. Chapter 12. Yi Qianxian was infuriated, and the battle qi around him surged even more fiercely. The spring water, which had already become completely transparent, was stirred up by the aura around his body. It was like a tornado that rose into the air. At this moment, his eyes suddenly focused, and he looked at a certain place on the shore. There, a little thing that he had just obtained had disappeared. It must have escaped when that woman barged in just now. Thinking of this, Yi Qianxian's eyes suddenly narrowed. He was so angry before that he didn't notice how that woman broke through the xianhuan single chi array he had set up. Although it was only a level 6 array he had casually set up, in this small place of Dongli country, no one should be able to break it. Thinking of how Luo Qingtong had left just now, like moving clouds and flowing water, without any hindrance, Yi Qianxian's eyes suddenly darkened. That woman was not simple. Whoosh. He stood up from the spring water, and a set of clothes silently appeared in the air, instantly wrapping the man's perfect body that angered both men and gods. In the next second his figure quickly disappeared from the spot. The place where the jade spring had been was only left with a huge hole. It could be seen that the crater was created by a single blow from a human. It was obvious that this jade spring was not some natural healing spring water. It was a healing place that the man had created himself. Whoosh, whoosh. Luo Qingtong's figure shuttled back and forth in the forest. After recovering from her injuries and her strength, she also felt that her body had become much lighter. I didn't expect that spring water to be so powerful. It actually healed my injuries in an instant. Luo Qingtong was astonished. However, the spring water seemed to be specially used to heal meridian injuries, and had no effect on the poison in her eyes. Could it be that the man had specially created it to heal his own injuries? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong lightly coughed twice. It seemed that she had not only taken liberties with him, but also snatched his healing spring water. Moreover, she had snatched his special healing opportunity. If it was a public spring water, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have thought much of it. Heavenly treasures should be shared with everyone who sees them. However, if it was someone else's exclusive medicinal spring water, or if it was someone else's own medicine, then it would be awkward. Forget it, I've already snatched it anyway. That man didn't look simple at first glance. They might not have the chance to meet again in the future. Besides, if he really did encounter it, he would just help him if he got into trouble. Luo Qingtong thought so and immediately felt at ease. At this moment, she suddenly felt something heavy hanging from the corner of her clothes. With a swoosh, she lifted the corner of her clothes and looked at it. Immediately she was speechless. What is this thing? She was speechless as she looked at the little pig that refused to let go of her clothes. When did this little thing hang onto his body? Looking at its small body, which was only the size of a palm, Luo Qingtong grabbed its little tail and lifted it up. Where did you come from, little thing? Could it have followed me out of the spring? She raised an eyebrow. The little pig's 4 hooves were struggling. Because she was holding its tail upside down, it couldn't turn over and kept struggling. One must know that when one's dantian was destroyed, unless there was a heaven-defying elixir or a heaven-grade Shen pill refined by a heavenly alchemist, the person's dantian would be destroyed. But how could a remote and inferior country like Dongli have such heaven-defying elixirs and heaven-grade Shen pills? Even their master would have to go through a lot of hardships to get one, and he might not be able to get it. But now, Luo Qingtong's cultivation had recovered. She must be holding a great opportunity in her hands. A heaven-grade Shen pill. She must have a heaven-grade Shen pill in her hands. Chapter 14. Luo Qingtong. Hand over the heaven-grade Shen core in your hands, or else don't blame us for being impolite. Those people shouted sternly. At this moment, a voice suddenly appeared in Luo Qingtong's mind. A bunch of fools. Ignorant fools. What is a heaven-grade Shen core? Compared to the medicinal liquid you've absorbed, it's simply trash. Don't mention a mere dantian, even a peerless trash would be transformed into a genius after being thrown into the medicinal liquid. These people only know about heaven-grade Shen cores. What a bunch of country bumpkins. And you, stupid woman? Seriously, to be chased by such trash, it's really embarrassing. When Luo Qingtong saw those people rushing out, she was prepared to ignore them. She turned around to lead them away, but a voice suddenly appeared in her mind. She was so startled that she slipped and almost fell to the ground. Who is it? She scanned her surroundings warily. Stupid. This time, as soon as the voice rang out, it abruptly stopped. Luo Qingtong sneered and pinched the mouth of the little pig in her arms. She pinched its jaw and said with a fake smile, "Do you think I'm blind and can't see your mouth moving? Do you feel good scolding me? Scolding me for being a stupid woman?" Luo Qingtong narrowed her pair of black and empty eyes. Her little face was covered in blood and dirt, but her smile was indescribably sweet. However, Little Pig's animal instinct told him that there was a hidden danger behind that smile. Why? Why? You can't do this to me. I'm an ancient mythical pig. I'm telling you, you'll regret killing me. It shouted fiercely, thinking that Luo Qingtong would let it go because of this. However, it didn't expect the girl to tighten her grip even more. Ancient mythical pig? I think you're more like a pig demon. Feeling Luo Qingtong's unhesitant and weakened killing intent, Little Pig was completely terrified. Oh, I was wrong. I'm your contracted beast now. You can't strangle me. Otherwise your own strength will be greatly damaged. Really? It tried its best to save itself. Its two short and fat little hooves hugged Luo Qingtong's hand and cried desperately. I'll deal with you later. Luo Qingtong thought of the sudden dizziness she felt before and was skeptical of the pig's words. Seeing that the silver-robed men were already charging towards her, she couldn't be bothered to waste any more words with it. She directly stuffed it into her sleeve, flicked her sleeves and rushed forward. That was a dense forest that she had her eyes on. It was the most suitable place for an ambush. Today she was going to play these people to death one by one. How dare they chase after her? Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. Streaks of blood-red light flashed through her empty eyes from time to time. That blood-stained little face had a bloodthirsty and sweet smile. It's been a long time since I've been so excited. Ever since she became famous as the Evil Eye, no one was able to force her to this step. She was going to play with these people. Luo Qingtong lightly licked her lips. Under the guidance of her dark red eyes, she dashed into the dense forest in a few flashes. In a flash, Luo Qingtong's figure appeared in a blind spot that was extremely good to hide in but hard to be discovered. Chapter 15. The little pig that was stuffed into Luo Qingtong's sleeve popped its head out of her sleeve. Then it was stunned by Luo Qingtong's smooth movements, as if she was showing off her skills. What shocked him even more was the things that Luo Qingtong had made. Ka. In the blink of an eye, Luo Qingtong had assembled a small crossbow from the cut parts. It looked simple and crude, but its structure was extremely exquisite. It was the pinnacle of cold weapons in the 24th century. This crossbow was cross-shaped and could be tied to her left arm. Once she covered it with her wide sleeve, it would disappear without a trace. There were 5 slots on the crossbow, just enough for 5 arrows to be placed. 2 switches could be pulled to shoot simultaneously, or 1 arrow could be fired in succession. It could be said that this crossbow was a killing weapon that maximized its lethality and dexterity. Little Pig had never seen such a thing before. Since when could weapons from the mortal world be so skillful and dexterous? Only a weapon refiner would be able to compare to this skill, right? While Little Pig was still in shock, Luo Qingtong had already taken out the jade hairpin from her hair bun and held it in her hand. The showtime? Luo Qingtong placed her index finger on her lips and smiled wickedly and bloodthirstily. In the next second, she jumped down from the treetops and chased after the silver-clothed men. Let her have a counter-hunt. Swoosh. While Luo Qingtong was chasing after the silver-clothed men, the latter also rushed into the forest. Spread out and search. You must catch that woman. Yes. The group of people responded in unison. Then they spread out in all directions of the dense forest. Their formation was very well trained and the location they chose was perfect to block all escape routes in the forest. As long as Luo Qingtong was in the forest, there was no way she could escape from their encirclement and search. What they didn't know was that Luo Qingtong was waiting for them to scatter. Do not enter the forest. It seems like these people don't understand this principle. Luo Qingtong watched the movements of these people with smiling eyes. In that instant, even the bloodstains on her face couldn't hide her peerless beauty and peerless allure. Shwa. Without making a sound, she flew above the head of a silver-robed man who was the furthest away from the others. That was a blind spot for everyone. In the next second, her figure was like a ghost as she instantly pounced down. Just as the silver-robed man sensed that there was something wrong with the airflow around him and was about to turn around to check, a jade hairpin that flickered with cold light had already pierced into the back of his head. In an instant, it pierced through his forehead. In Luo Qingtong's eyes, the silver-clothed man's entire body was surging with energy. His weak points were all under her control. Chapter 16. Number 6. Seeing the corpse of the man in silver who was the first to arrive was shocked and quickly ran over to check. Just as he was about to touch number 6's corpse, a cold murderous intent instantly locked onto him. Oh no! Alarm bells rang in his head. The silver-robed man's body came to a halt. The moment the murderous intent surged, he quickly rolled to the side. With such reaction speed, he should be able to dodge even an assassination attack at close range. However, the man in silver did not expect that the cold murderous intent would be even faster than his speed. Ka! With a soft sound that was almost inaudible, an arrow flew out at high speed. Just as the man in silver dodged, another arrow flew out from the air and collided with the tail of the previous arrow. With a puff, the tail of the arrow was hit and instantly changed its trajectory. In the next second, under the silver-robed man's horrified gaze, the arrow hit his weak point right below his right rib, right where his weak point was. At the same time, a graceful and charming figure flashed past his line of sight in an instant. A jade hairpin instantly killed him by cutting his throat. Bang! The silver-robed man's body swayed, and he fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. Number 13. The remaining men in silver rushed over and saw number 13's body fall to the ground. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed in their line of sight and disappeared without a trace. Even with their eyesight and strength, they were unable to see her whereabouts and trajectory. Was she still a martial master? Was this the strength a martial master should have? The group of men were shocked and furious. Their hearts were filled with a chill. Normally, they would not even take a martial master seriously. They would be crushed to death with just a lift of their hand. But now they were frightened by Luo Qingtong. Let's go. The leading silver-clothed man made a prompt decision and gave the order. The person they were facing was not an ordinary person. Luo Qingtong's change must be reported to the master immediately. However, his words did not receive any response. Are you calling them? A sweet voice came from behind him at this moment. The leader of the silver-robed men suddenly turned around and saw the girl in blood-red clothes appear behind him. She raised her hand and pushing the subordinates behind him to the ground. The men's eyes were wide open and their bodies were stiff. They did not know when they had died. As for him, he did not feel anything at all. Thinking of this, the leader in silver felt a chill run down his back. He looked at Luo Qingtong as if he had seen a ghost. How did she do it? A mere martial master could kill them all as if they were dogs. Shouldn't it be the other way around? The silver-robed leader's mind was in a mess. Looking at Luo Qingtong, who was smiling sweetly in front of him, he almost thought that he remembered wrongly. A martial master should be more powerful than a martial general. But in reality, a martial master could only be considered as someone who had just stepped onto the path of martial arts. On the path of martial arts, martial disciples, martial artists, martial masters, martial generals and great martial generals. A little higher was a martial marquis. A marquis could rule over a region. In any small country they could become a marquis. And above that, a martial king could directly establish a country. The entire eastern border country was founded by an inferior martial king. It had continued to this day. The ranks of a martial master could not be surpassed. In the dark, Yi Qianxian's figure was hidden in midair. He stared at Luo Qingtong's moves without blinking. His eyes were deep. He looked at Luo Qingtong with flickering eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. He chased after that thing's aura, but he didn't expect to see such an unexpected scene. 5 martial generals, one of which was even a peak martial general, were slaughtered like chickens and dogs. If the one who attacked was a great martial general, this result wouldn't be surprising. However, if it was a martial master, it couldn't help but surprise him. Although this kind of battle was child's play to Yi Qianxian, it was like a fight between ants. However, the crossbow in Luo Qingtong's hands aroused his great interest. Even Little Pig could see that the crossbow in Luo Qingtong's hands was extraordinary. How could Yi Qianxian not see it? The craftsmanship of this crossbow was truly exquisite. It was comparable to a treasured weapon refined by a weapon refiner. However, there wasn't a trace of energy fluctuation. It was obvious that even if an ordinary person used it, with its powerful mobility, dexterity and lethality, it wouldn't be a problem to deal with a martial artist. This woman could actually casually create such a powerful killing weapon? Yi Qianxian sized up Luo Qingtong. Chapter 18. Because he saw that after Luo Qingtong killed the leader of the silver-robed men, she pounced on him and began to touch him from top to bottom. That's right, she was touching him from top to bottom. Yi Qianxian looked coldly at the other party as she smiled and plunged her tender little hands directly into the silver-robed man's chest. Didn't this woman know that men and women should not touch each other, and strangers should not come close? Or did she not even let the dead off? As long as they had a slightly better figure, she would take advantage of them? Yi Qianxian couldn't help but recall the scene of him being threatened and forced by Luo Qingtong in the healing spring. His expression immediately turned gloomy. This woman. She even said that it was an accident. God knows that Luo Qingtong was really wrongly accused. How was she taking advantage of them? She was searching them. The identities of these silver-robed men were not simple. Now that they were dead, she naturally had to search them to see if she could find any clues and plunder some good things at the same time. However, because of the previous series of bad impressions, coupled with Yi Qianxian's honorable status, he would almost never conduct such a body search. Thus, he immediately regarded her actions as lust. He didn't know why, but when he saw Luo Qingtong's lecherous expression, he felt a burst of irritation in his heart. Swish! Yi Qianxian's figure suddenly appeared beside Luo Qingtong. Oh, what is this? Luo Qingtong had just found something and was about to examine it carefully when she suddenly felt that there was one more person beside her. Her heart was fiercely startled. She instantly put the thing she had found into her bosom and was about to jump away. However, just as she was about to move, a powerful aura instantly opened up a barrier and firmly enveloped the space around her. Bang! Luo Qingtong's back crashed heavily into a wall of air. Still want to run? His cold voice was filled with obvious anger. Luo Qingtong's heart suddenly jumped. She looked up with a dry smile and greeted the man in front of her. Hey handsome. What a coincidence, haha, we meet again. Yi Qianxian looked at her coldly. Suddenly, he raised his hand and grabbed at her. His target was the little pig in her sleeve. Luo Qingtong thought he was here for revenge. Hey, handsome, if you have something to say we can talk it out. Don't fight. I already said that it was a mistake. Do you have to be so relentless? Luo Qingtong's heart tightened when she saw the man's hand coming for her. Almost subconsciously, she activated her pupil technique to the extreme. In the blink of an eye, all kinds of flows of air and strength in the surrounding space appeared in her eyes. In the next second, Luo Qingtong's figure abruptly darted away, dodging Yi Qianxian's grab and fleeing to the rear. Unknowingly, she had actually bypassed the air wall that was blocking her back previously. Seeing Luo Qingtong's action, Yi Qianxian's eyes flashed fiercely. This woman had too many secrets. She could even break through his aura seal. Yi Qianxian finally got serious. Swoosh. Just when Luo Qingtong thought she had escaped, Yi Qianxian took a step forward. The distance of several zhang was instantly shortened by his step. It was as if he was so close yet so far away. Yi Qianxian's figure appeared directly beside Luo Qingtong, who was fleeing at high speed. It was as if he hadn't been far from her from the beginning. His hand grabbed at Luo Qingtong. The strong wind carried with it an unparalleled aura. Compared to the silver-clothed men, this aura was like the 5 sacred mountains to the earth slope, the high mountains and flowing rivers to the mountain stream, and the colossus to the ants and worms. Chapter 19. Strong. Too strong. Luo Qingtong had never met anyone like Yi Qianxian in the 24th century's ability world. She didn't even have the slightest hope of winning. What kind of place was this world? Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with blood-red light. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't see through Yi Qianxian's weakness. Damn it! Was she going to be caught by this man? Luo Qingtong bit her lip. Suddenly, her eyes flashed and the corners of her lips curled up. When Yi Qianxian's hand reached for her, she didn't move forward but instead moved backward. She leaned against Yi Qianxian's body. At the same time, she retracted her aura. Luo Qingtong was running in front when Yi Qianxian's figure appeared beside her. But after her figure paused and retreated, the young girl's soft body crashed into Yi Qianxian's broad chest. In an instant the two of them hugged each other. Yi Qianxian was caught off guard and his body stiffened. Before he could react, Luo Qingtong raised her head and hooked her arms around his neck. Her face was enchanting and charming as she welcomed him. Handsome, you're so persistent. Don't tell me you've fallen in love with me? Alright. Although I'm not a casual person, you're so outstanding. I'll reluctantly accept you. Luo Qingtong said as she moved to kiss Yi Qianxian. The man didn't expect her to be so bold. Before Luo Qingtong he had never been so close to a woman. Not to mention the other party dared to ignore his aura and directly kiss him. Feeling the sweet fragrance exhaled from Luo Qingtong's lips, and then looking at the rapidly approaching pink lips, Yi Qianming's figure almost instantly shot backwards. At the same time he waved his sleeves. How dare you? His face was angry. But just as he waved his sleeves, the girl's bell-like laughter instantly rose with the wind. Following the force of his wave, she quickly leaped backward. Ah! Handsome, I didn't expect you to be so pure. Luo Qingtong turned back and winked at him. She put her index finger on her lips and sent him a flying kiss. Her eyes were curved with a smile. "Thank you for sending me off. Bye-bye." As she spoke, she laughed and waved her sleeves. Her figure suddenly turned into a ghost-like trace, following the force of Yi Qianxian's sleeve and quickly moved away. Damn it. This woman. The moment Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, Yi Qianxian immediately reacted. His face darkened. He was deceived by this cunning and fickle woman again. Luo Qingtong's kiss was to make him push her away. With Yi Qianxian's strength, if he didn't voluntarily let go, Luo Qingtong would have no chance of escaping. This woman, she deliberately kissed him, so that he would let go. As Yi Qianxian thought about it, he felt a wave of shame and anger. But at the same time, a strange feeling arose in his heart. There seemed to be a faint girl's breath lingering on his lips. Just now, that kiss had come too suddenly. Chapter 20. Oh my god. Oh my god, I was scared to death just now. Luo Qingtong patted her chest as she ran. That man's aura was too strong. She thought she wouldn't be able to escape this time. Recalling the things she did to that man, Luo Qingtong patted her chest and rejoiced. Little Pig, who was hiding in her sleeve and didn't even dare to fart, was also dumbfounded. *CK. This woman is too daring. You were scared, but you still dared to tease him? What kind of weird brain circuit is this? It said in disbelief. If I didn't tease him, should I wait for death? Luo Qingtong said angrily. That man was so strong, of course I had to use extreme methods. However, not bad? She licked her lips and smiled evilly. Such a strong and handsome man was really her cup of tea. Unfortunately, he's too strong, so I can't touch him. Messing with this kind of man is a big trouble. Luo Qingtong thought about it and calmed down. Before Little Pig could say anything, Luo Qingtong had already grabbed it and jumped to the top of a 1,000-year-old ancient tree. This place was far enough away from that place, so there shouldn't be any problems. Okay, now you can tell me what the hell you are? Luo Qingtong grabbed Little Pig's neck and pulled it closer to her. Hey, talking pig demon? She flicked Little Pig's butt. Ah. Little Pig covered its butt with its two hind legs and stared at her with its beady eyes. You're the pig demon. I'm the ancient divine pig. Do you know the ancient divine pig? It bristled with anger. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and looked at it. Ancient divine pig? You. She looked at the pink pig from head to toe. She really didn't know where its confidence came from. If the ancient divine beasts were like it, they would all commit suicide. Don't look down on me. I'm just being sealed. Little Pig proudly stuck out his round little belly. You don't know how powerful I used to be. He was known as the #1 pig in the world. Even the divine dragon phoenix has to call me Grandpa Pig when it sees me. Pfft. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh. The #1 pig in the world? She was going to die from laughter. Little Pig panicked when he saw her like this. I really am an ancient divine pig. Only ancient divine beasts could directly sign a heaven and earth contract with humans. Ignore level. Don't tell me you don't know this common sense? Luo Qingtong really didn't know about these things. She was inexplicably brought here, and she didn't even understand what was going on in this world. Also, her body was obviously not hers. Wait a minute. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong suddenly jumped down from the treetops. She found a pool and washed the blood off her face. Phew. Luckily, it's still my original face. What Luo Qingtong was most afraid of was that if her body and face changed, would it still be her? However, she was relieved now. This face was exactly the same as her original face. After so many years, she was still the most used to her own face. Moreover, Luo Qingtong used to be a devastatingly beautiful woman. There was no need for her to change her face. She was very satisfied with her current appearance. However, she didn't know the identity of this body. As Luo Qingtong pondered, she suddenly remembered the things she found from the silver-clothed leader. Perhaps she could find some clues? Chapter 21. It was a token made of a special material. It was shining with a cold metallic luster, but she didn't know what material it was made of. There was a strange totem pattern engraved on the token. In addition, there was a big word dark on it. What's this? Luo Qingtong looked at the token. She didn't know what it was and what it meant. Just as she frowned and was about to put it away, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her head. A strong consciousness suddenly rose from the depths of her mind. Tianyu Empire. Secret Guard token. It's them. It's them who set me up. Tianyu Empire, if you are not satisfied with the engagement between Yuan Mo and me, you can break it off. Why do you set me up like this? What? That consciousness made a ruckus in Luo Qingtong's mind. The mournful cry almost made Luo Qingtong's head explode. The sobbing and mournful voice made Luo Qingtong's head ache. In the next second, countless memories flooded into his mind like a flood that had been opened from a dam. In an instant, Luo Qingtong's consciousness was filled to the brim. Soon she understood everything. It turned out that this body also belonged to a woman named Luo Qingtong. However, compared to her strong and unscrupulous personality, this woman named Luo Qingtong was not so lucky. She was the first miss of the Marquis Mansion Luo family in the inferior Dongli country. She was the first genius of the Luo family and the first beauty of the Dongli country. However, she was betrayed by the third miss of the Luo family, Luo Xining, the daughter of a concubine of the second branch whom she regarded as her own sister. In the end, her dantian was destroyed, her cultivation was lost, and her eyes were blinded by poison. She was thrown to a group of people who didn't know what kind of people they were. If Luo Qingtong hadn't transmigrated over at the right time and killed those black-robed men, and even killed those silver-robed men who were monitoring in the dark, her fate would have been extremely tragic. Scenes flashed through Luo Qingtong's mind. It turned out that Luo Qingtong had taken good care of Luo Xining. She had nurtured her frail body and helped her develop her martial arts talent. She had even taught her how to cultivate step by step. She had even shared her own resources with her to help her improve her strength. Luo Xining in the picture was as pure as a white lotus. Unfortunately, the heart of this white lotus was filthy black. Luo Qingtong looked at the scene in her mind and memories flashed past. That Luo Xining stood in front of that Luo Qingtong and destroyed her cultivation and blinded her. After that, he said that her life was too good. There were too many benefits to dealing with her, so he had no choice but to do it. Good. Very good. Luo Qingtong's vacant eyes flashed with a strange bloody light. So everything that she had to face after transmigrating was all because of this woman? Luo Xining, right? I'll remember you. I like sluts like you. I like to torture sluts like you. Luo Qingtong's smile was as red as blood. She didn't care how stupid the original body was. She had kept this snake beauty who obviously had evil intentions by her side. She even had her cultivation and eyes destroyed when she was breaking through. But now she was the one who had taken over this body. She would never allow anyone to humiliate her. Chapter 22. And the royal family of the Qianhu Empire, the Yuan family. Luo Qingtong stared at the secret guard token in her hand. From her memories, she knew that this body was engaged to the fifth prince, Yuan Mo, who was the pride of their empire. The Qianhu Empire was an emperor-level super country, which was totally different from the inferior Dongli country. Not to mention the Luo family of the Marquis of Dongli country. No one knew why Yuan Mo would be engaged to such an inferior country's Marquis Mansion's eldest miss. After all, Yuan Mo was a genius with outstanding strength and talent. He was definitely the number one person in the Qianhu Empire. But who knew that when Yuan Mo was born, he was even worse than a loser. He was weak and sick, born with cold energy. He was doomed to be unable to cultivate for the rest of his life. It was the host's mother who saved his life and helped him remove the disease in his body, making him a genius. From then on he had a meteoric rise. But how did the Yuan family treat the host? After the host's mother disappeared, they immediately wanted to break off the engagement. Now they even sent people to bribe Luo Xining to kill the host. Why did they destroy her cultivation and eyes, throw her out to be raped, and then hang her at the city gate? Because the Yuan family wanted to break off the engagement in a justifiable way. They couldn't leave any stain on Yuan Mo. What could give them a better reason to break off the engagement than destroying Luo Qingtong? Even if the engagement was cancelled, it would always be Luo Qingtong who was in a bad spot, not Yuan Mo. After all, how could a woman who had lost both her reputation and cultivation be worthy of the fifth prince, who was favored by the heavens? Luo Qingtong thought, and the smile on her face deepened. These people were great. That's great. God's favored one? Ah. She would let them know that the so-called genius was worthless in front of her. I haven't been so excited for a long time. The last time was when she killed the vice president of the Special Ability Assassination Union and the others who had come to kill her. She spent nearly a month to kill the most powerful people in the Esper Assassination Union one by one. This time wouldn't be an exception. It didn't matter how much time she had to spend. Luo Qingtong's personality was very evil. She didn't care how Luo Xining and the Qianhu imperial family treated the host. She wasn't the host before. But after she transmigrated she was annoyed. Especially when she was chased after by the men in silver, causing her to accidentally enter that man's healing spring water and offend him. Of course, Luo Xingning and the royal family of Tianyu had to be blamed for this. Whoosh. Putting away the secret guard token in her hand, Luo Qingtong jumped up to the top of the tree. This was the treasure trove of the wilderness. The terrain of the Nine Magi Mountain was steep, and the forest was treacherous. There were countless beasts and ferocious beasts within. However, it was also extremely rich in resources. Luo Qingtong's eyes were crippled. Although she could see things with her eye technique and was not much different from ordinary people, it was still inconvenient. Eyes, its eyes, sigh. I. If it was the Luo Qingtong in her prime, she wouldn't have cared about this. But now that she had just transmigrated, this body obviously hadn't cultivated any spiritual power. The amount of spiritual power she had was limited. It was tiring to maintain it for a long time, and it was also very unsafe. Luo Qingtong had to find a way to cure the poison in her eyes. The Nine Magi Mountain was the best place for her to find the antidote. Chapter 23. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and scraped off a drop of black poisonous water from the corner of her eye. Looking at the drop of poisonous water that fell on the tip of her index finger, the bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes swirled and suddenly became intense. Her bloody eyes looked particularly bewitching and evil, like a demon that bewitched people's hearts, coquettish and beautiful. Heavenly blood grass, double moon lotus, heartless dragon root. Under the gaze of Luo Qingtong's bewitching bloody eyes, the medicinal ingredients were analyzed by Luo Qingtong one by one. If someone was here and saw this scene, they would definitely cry out in amazement. Luo Qingtong's eyes were actually so powerful. Just by looking at the poisonous water, she was actually able to analyze the medicinal properties. What kind of monstrous and terrifying ability was this? One must know that there were prescriptions for refining medicine, and there were prescriptions for refining tools. No matter what it was, there was a unique secret manual. The prescriptions for refining medicine and refining tools were also the secrets of their respective sects and clans. Except for some common prescriptions that were circulated outside, the other prescriptions, especially those that were developed by their own sects, were the treasures of their respective sects. These were the secret recipes that they used to protect their sects and clans' strength and status. And Luo Qingtong was actually able to see through the essence of it with just a glance. Didn't this mean that all the secret recipes were useless to her? In fact, this was indeed the case. Luo Qingtong's previous life's ranking in the 24th century's Esper ability Assassination Union was so high mainly because of this ability. This ability was the true essence of her eye ability. Any secret recipe, medicine, weapon, defense. Under her eyes, nothing could hide. All the countries and organizations in the world coveted this ability of hers, but they were also afraid of this ability. Think about it, if you developed a new weapon or new medicine with great difficulty or something else, she would be able to know the proportion of your recipe and grasp your manufacturing process. How frightening was that? Of course, if this ability was in her own hands, then it would be incomparably wonderful. Therefore, people both loved and hated Luo Qingtong's ability. Her ranking in the Esper Assassin Union also rose as her ocular technique improved day by day. In the end, it rose to the first place and there was no change after that. It was the most poisonous medicine. Someone actually used such a thing to harm the original owner? What kind of grudge do you have against me? Luo Qingtong completely analyzed the composition of the poison and immediately raised her eyebrows. Not only was the toxicity of this poison strong, it was also very difficult to detoxify. In other words, this medicine was both a good cure and a powerful poison at the same time. All of this was orchestrated by the drug. The medicinal herbs that Luo Qingtong had analyzed all happened to reinforce and restrain each other. In the end, they formed a complete circle. If these herbs were arranged in a proper manner, they would reinforce each other, and they would be the best medicine for healing. However, if they were arranged in reverse order, then they would counter each other and become extremely poisonous. The same medicinal material could actually be medicine or poison. It was extremely difficult to concoct such a poison. Not only were the medicinal materials needed very picky, but the timing of adding them was also very strict. If it was slightly lacking, then it would be a failure. It was definitely not something that an ordinary alchemist could refine. Even the heavenly alchemists who were highly regarded by the world might not be able to refine it. How could Luo Xingning have such a powerful poison in her hands? This poison was so precious that even the entire Tianyu Empire might not be able to exchange for a drop of it, let alone Luo Xingning. Moreover, there was more than one drop in her eyes. Chapter 24. Things are getting more and more interesting. Luo Qingtong laughed coldly. This poison definitely did not belong to Luo Xining. Even the royal family of the Tianyu Empire would not be able to produce it. It seemed like there was more to this matter than met the eye. It was not as simple as the Tianyu Empire breaking off the engagement. However, it did not matter. She was not afraid of trouble. She was only afraid that things would not be interesting enough. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too boring in such a big world? It would be too unfair for her to be reborn in this life. She would not let go of anyone who tried to harm her behind her back. Alright, since I know the ingredients of this poison, I will be able to detoxify it once I find the corresponding ingredients. This poison was indeed powerful to others. They might not be able to detoxify it in their entire lives. However, to Luo Qingtong it was not a problem at all. This poison was difficult to detoxify because normal people would not be able to tell how many ingredients were in it, what their properties were, and what order they were added in. However, Luo Qingtong knew all of it. What was the point of detoxifying it? As long as she could find the right ingredients and refine them according to the order, the poison would be detoxified immediately. As she thought about it, Luo Qingtong lifted her hand and shook off the drop of poisonous water. Then she dashed into the depths of the Nine Magi Mountain. She hoped that there were the ingredients she needed here. Moments after Luo Qingtong left, Xianxia, who had been chasing after her, appeared. Swoosh! He appeared at the place where Luo Qingtong had been. Sensing the lingering aura, he frowned. He was a step too late. He did not know how Luo Qingtong was able to find the perfect place to hide every time. Even with his spiritual perception, he could not find such a blind spot in a short period of time. A mere martial master was actually able to avoid the search of his divine sense time and time again. If this were to spread, it would be shocking. The more Yi Chenxian searched for Luo Qingtong, the more he felt that she was hiding many secrets. This woman was like a treasure trove hidden in thick fog. Every time she could bring him a different feeling and surprise. Unknowingly, the anger in Yi Chenxian's heart subsided. Instead, it was filled with curiosity and curiosity. He glanced around and suddenly saw the drop of poisonous water that Luo Qingtong had thrown onto a leaf. This is the ultimate medicine and poison? Most people would not be able to sense the spiritual energy contained in that drop of poisonous water. However, Yi Chenxian was not one of them. Looking at the drop of poisonous water, Yi Chenxian's eyes flashed. He thought of Luo Qingtong's eyes. Could it be that she was blind? She was actually poisoned and poisoned by someone. What was the identity of that woman? Could it be that she wasn't from Dongli country? That's right, with all the abilities she's shown, she doesn't seem like someone from this low-level country. Thinking of this, Yi Chenxian moved and headed in the direction that Luo Qingtong had disappeared. However, he didn't know that it was because of this misunderstanding that he couldn't find Luo Qingtong for a long time. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Luo Qingtong's figure moved quickly in the deep forest. With her eye technique, Luo Qingtong could enter and exit the depths of the Nine Magi Mountains as she wished. As long as there were powerful demonic beasts, she could detect them in advance and easily avoid them. Every place she went was a blind spot in the terrain. It was safe and not easy to be discovered. As Luo Qingtong moved, she looked up and scanned her surroundings. Wherever the dark red light from her eyes passed, all the spirit herbs were exposed to her eyes. The age and medicinal properties of the herbs were revealed. However, to Luo Qingtong's disappointment, along the way she did not find a single herb that was useful for treating her eyes. It was obvious that the herbs used to make the ultimate medicine and poison were not ordinary. Correspondingly, the herbs that could cure the poison were also very difficult to find. It was very likely that there weren't any in the depths of the Nine Magi Mountains. Tisk, troublesome. It seemed that she had to think of another way. Luo Qingtong thought and prepared to leave. Chapter 25. Rumble. Luo Qingtong's senses were extremely sharp. When she sensed that something was wrong in front of her, a deafening sound could be heard in an instant. At the same time, a fishy smell assailed her nostrils. Even though they were separated by hundreds of feet and countless huge trees and long grass, that fishy smell was like a violent storm, assaulting her face. Swish. It was like a sharp blade cutting through the air. Wherever that smell passed, the huge trees collapsed and the long grass fell, revealing the scene in front of her. Luo Qingtong's pupils fiercely shrank. She saw countless huge pythons twisting together to form a huge ball of meat rushing towards her. Their forked tongues, triangular heads, ferocious eyes, and huge intertwined bodies all showed how terrifying these pythons were. Rank 3 demonic beasts. Luo Qingtong watched the huge pythons, which were nearly 100 feet long, twisting and rolling towards her. The whole mountain was filled with snakes. This scene was enough to make a martial marquis expert's scalp numb. A rank 3 demonic python like this could easily kill a martial master. Even ordinary martial artists had to be careful when facing them. Now, there were more than 100 of them here. Such a huge number of pythons were chasing after one person. Ah, don't chase me. Don't. Running in front of the huge pythons was a young boy. His eyes were filled with tears as he ran and sobbed. It was obvious that he was very scared. Streaks of tears hung on his delicate, jade-like face. His eyelashes were trembling rapidly, as if he would cry out loud in the next moment. The young boy was about 8 or 9 years old. He was wearing luxurious clothes and a precious jade pendant hung on his waist. All the accessories on his body, including his clothes, were spiritual weapons. At this moment, all of them were shining brightly, resisting the attacks from the huge pythons. It could be seen that these spiritual tools were not just for show. But there were too many pythons. No matter how many spiritual weapons he had, they could not withstand this kind of consumption. The light was already very weak. The young boy was crying as he ran towards Luo Qingtong. His footsteps were staggering as if he would fall in the next moment. At this moment he saw Luo Qingtong and his eyes suddenly widened. "I'm immortal, sister." Wherever the python passed, the tall grass and huge trees would fall. Luo Qingtong saw him, and naturally he also saw Luo Qingtong. At a distance of nearly 100 feet, Luo Qingtong's face, which was as beautiful as a fairy from the 9th heaven, directly entered the young boy's eyes. At this moment she was looking at the young boy and the group of giant pythons with a cold expression, but she didn't know how much of an impact her appearance had on the young boy. She must be a fairy. That was why he was able to face so many third-rank demonic beasts so calmly. Chapter 26. Luo Qingtong looked at the direction the youth ran and raised her eyebrows. Just now she was already prepared to kill. Even facing the youth, she was full of murderous intent. If the other party dared to rush in front of her and use her as a shield, she would definitely finish him off directly. But she didn't expect that the youth would run away after looking at her, and even lead the giant pythons away. It seemed that he didn't deliberately lead the giant pythons here, nor did he have the intention to use her as a shield. It was just a mistake. Unfortunately, it was too late. Luo Qingtong sniffed the remaining faint smell in the air and narrowed her eyes. This smell would cause the demonic beast to go crazy and chase after the other party. Obviously, this was the reason why the youth was being chased by these demonic pythons. At this moment, because of the fishy wind just now, a lot of this smell had already contaminated Luo Qingtong's body. Even though the youth had stopped in time and led the giant pythons away, but there were still many giant pythons that followed the smell and rushed towards Luo Qingtong. Obviously, she was also a target. Troublesome. Luo Qingtong frowned and her figure swept in an instant. Swish. She rushed to the place where the youth left. In order to get rid of these giant pythons, the matter still had to fall on the youth's body. If she guessed correctly, the youth should have taken some kind of drug that could stimulate these giant pythons to go crazy, so that his body emitted that kind of attractive and tempting aura, causing these giant pythons to chase after him relentlessly, vowing to swallow him into their stomachs. In order to get rid of this aura, she had to get rid of the drug in his body. Swish. Luo Qingtong rushed towards those giant pythons that were rushing over. Under the gaze of her eyes, the weak points of these giant pythons were as dazzling as the lights in the dark night. The jade hairpin in her hand swept through the air. A giant python screamed tragically in an instant. Its body was more than 10 meters long. It rolled and twisted violently in the air, knocking several giant pythons next to it away. Luo Qingtong's expression was relaxed as she dashed out of the huge gap in their encirclement and headed in the direction the youth ran. Before she left, she didn't forget to pluck a few stalks of herbs from under a big tree nearby. Hiss. By the time she arrived, the spirit tool on the youth's body could no longer support him. The defensive light of the spirit artifact disappeared, and he was heavily tripped by the strong wind created by the tail of a giant python that swept from behind him. Oh, oh. Looking at the huge python head rushing over, the young boy's face was filled with fear. But even so, he forced himself not to cry for help. He knew that no one could save him in the depths of the forest. The tears on the young boy's face flowed out, and his white jade-like face was washed with wet streaks. He looked so pitiful and adorable. His lips were bitten so hard that they bled. Just when the young man's heart was filled with despair, a cool breeze suddenly swept past with a whoosh. His waist was violently grabbed, and in the next second his entire body was lifted into the air. I'm immortal, sister. Looking at the peerless beauty in front of him in shock, the young man was completely stunned. Perhaps because he was saved, Luo Qingtong gave the young man a great shock. She was like a ray of light, giving hope to the hopeless young man in the darkness of the road ahead. Wah! Immortal sister. The young man hugged Luo Qingtong and cried loudly, as if he was hugging his last salvation. Luo Qingtong originally saved him in passing, but who would have thought that the young man would act as if he had seen his family, fiercely hugging her and crying loudly. This unguarded and intimate appearance made Luo Qingtong stare blankly. If it weren't for the fact that there was no image of this little guy in her memory, Luo Qingtong would have thought that the other party didn't recognize her. Wasn't this too unguarded? Didn't he suspect that she might have been sent by his enemy? You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.